And here we go. Digital Adele back with another Hoops Profile Beyond the Backboard podcast with my co-host, Matt Hanifan. How you doing today, Matt?
Doing good, man. Day before Thanksgiving. I will be doing some traveling later today. There's so much hoops on right now. College basketball. The NBA season's obviously a month underway. We have the Maui Invitational. We have the Battle for Atlanta started today. Um, there's so much hoops. My head's spinning. My head is quite literally. I mean, maybe not literally, but my brain is spinning. But nah, man. I'm ready to get into it. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Like you said, man, it's a hoops mania right now. The Maui Invitational for college basketball. The NBA is in full swing. I'm doing traveling as well for the holidays. I fly out early in the morning tomorrow, and I'll be back in Florida December the 1st. So I will be on the move. But just like the college basketball world, sometimes there's stoppages in play. Looks like Elmo on that Twitter site is trying to prevent me from tweeting out our link because it just will not go. It just says cannot be done at this time. Give it another shot. So no idea what's going on over at that place, but we're here. We're live and direct. So I want to talk a little bit about some Portland Trailblazers 2024 NBA draft pick. And one mountain of a human being in Donovan Clingan. Before I do, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Joe Cronin, the GM for the Portland Trailblazers, and their draft. What's wrong, Matt? Have you read my mind?
We've all, at least people who might be watching, I have a flag over my right shoulder.
Yeah.
We know where you're going with this.
I don't think you do. No, I think you do. Yeah, so along those lines, Joe Cronin may have not even had the draft pick to use in the 2024 draft had he made a trade with another NBA team, which will remain nameless for the purposes of this episode. He had a moleskin notebook. He looked in the mirror. He reflected on his soul, and he said, get the best deal. And he got a bunch of trash and kept the pick.
And well, he would have kept the pick anyway, no?
Maybe. We don't know. We'll never know. The deal was never made.
I mean, why would you trade your first round pick?
Could have been a three-way trade, my friend. Third team could have been involved. You never know.
I mean, the third team was already involved. It just wasn't Miami. Miami wasn't involved in it.
Right.
There were three teams involved.
Miami was the innocent bystander. It was like looking at the window at everybody dance and have a good time, and it was just sad on the inside as they watched it.
You know, like the SpongeBob meme where Squidward's in the house and he's just looking outside for like Patrick and SpongeBob running around. Yeah. That was the Miami Heat watching the Suns, Bucks, and Blazers.
He was absolutely peeking through the curtain, watching the Bucks and Trailblazers frolic around in NBA free agency waters and make trades. Anyway, that pick they used turned out to be one Donovan Clingan, a mountain of a man, and turned out pretty good in my opinion. And we're going to dive into some of what that looks like. As always, I'll let you go first. Tell me what you liked about one Donovan Clingan.
He's an anchor. And I think so far what we've seen through his first 17 games, yes, we're already 17 games into the NBA season, like that we have not a big sample, but a reasonable sample for some of these guys. He's been everything as advertised, like what you saw at college, what you saw at UConn, like him being the defensive anchor that we saw him for two national championship teams. I know for one of them, he was mostly coming off the bench behind Sanogo. But he's been a defensive anchor whenever he's been on the floor. And then offensively. Like, yeah, he is very limited offensively. I think he's expanded his game maybe a little bit with Portland, but nothing crazy. Like him being the screener that he is, he's been invaluable on that end. But I think like just with the rebounding, the shot blocking, deterring shots around the rim. Yeah, he doesn't have the greatest foot speed. Like he's not incredibly nimble, but I think he's just been everything as advertised for Portland. I think he's been someone who has been really like important to what they're doing, especially defensively. And like, yeah, they're still not a good team. They still have to build the rest of the shit. But I think you've got someone who you could potentially build around. Like, I don't is Scoot that answer? I have no idea. Is Anthony Simons or Jeremy Grant that answer? Probably not. But you still got to build the rest of the ship, and I think you just have like a foundational piece. Um, what you have, like he's averaging 2.2 blocks in just 17 minutes per game. Like it's a crazy amount. I think he had one game. I don't remember who it was against, but he had like 12 blocks. Was it that? Or was it eight? Like
Well,
some crazy amount of blocks.
yeah, November 13th, he played against Minnesota Timberwolves and had 8 blocks.
Oh, it's 8 blocks. Okay.
Yeah, nobody's doing it with blocks.
And then like he's been really good, especially rebounding offensively, like creating second chance points for his team,
Right.
and for himself. He's shooting better from the free throw line than I expected through this 17 game sample, albeit just on 1.3 attempts per game. Like he's only gotten to the free throw line 22 times in 17 games.
Right.
72.7%. Something that I found I just didn't realize. He's shooting 3 of 9 from deep. He's actually spacing the floor a little bit more than he did when he was at UConn, which he wasn't spacing the floor at all.
No.
When he was at UConn. To me, I just think he's flown under the radar. Like I don't really think he's being talked about amongst like the top rookies. And he was the guy that like I know you and I have had this conversation plenty of times before, but he was a guy that at least I would be like I was considering if I was like the team with the number 1 overall pick, I would consider taking him. I know you've been on the Stephon Castle island, and rightfully so. He's been terrific, but Clingan was at least a guy that I was also considering for that spot, assuming I was, I'm not Atlanta. But I think he's like him falling to 7. I just think he's flown under the radar. Like I think people have forgotten about how impactful he is and how good he's been. Like you see all these rookie ladders, and he's not mentioned at all. And I think again with the defensive, what he's done defensively, what he's done as a screener, even though he's still limited offensively, I think he's been incredibly valuable to what they've done.
I absolutely agree with what you said. There's a couple of things. I want to address a couple of points you made because you made a lot of important points here. The first one being is when you called him an anchor, I was wondering if you were calling him that because he was tied to a sinking ship that is the Portland Trailblazers. That was my immediate thought when you called him an anchor. But in basketball terms, I get why you call him an anchor because he does anchor your defense down low. A big part of defense that a lot of people overlook is that the defensive possession does not end until you secure a defensive rebound. And I want to read you just a couple of stats. We don't do a ton of deep dives in stats. We talk more about the highs, the whys, and the whats more than we do the statistics on this channel. I leave that to you. But I want to read you some rebounding stats over his last 5 games. I'm just going to go straight down the list. Starting on November 13th against Minnesota, he had 12 total rebounds that game. 12. Correlate that with 8 blocked shots that same game. That's an anchor on defense, right? Next game. That was on the 17th. That was against the Atlanta Hawks. And a number 1 pick in Zachary Richichet. Different positions, obviously, but, he's in the same draft class. He had 8 rebounds, and he had 3 block shots. Next game after that on the 20th, he had 9 rebounds, 2 block shots. Game after that, 7 rebounds, 2 block shots. The most recent game he played, November 23rd, 19 rebounds, 3 block shots. Out of the 19, you know how many were on the offensive glass? 9. That is an anchor if I've ever seen one. And the fact that he can stretch the floor a little bit, I mean, and obviously it's not terrific, but being able to at least give the threat of the 3 ball at his size is just fantastic. It makes him a little bit more versatile, a little bit more playable in today's pace and space. And then I want you to ponder this for a second. How much better his points per game numbers would be if Scoot Henderson had any type of feel for the game coming off pick and roll, right? If he had any type of feel for the game, and he had a legitimate facilitating point guard on that team, his numbers would be excellent. Absolutely excellent. There were those rumors. Now, maybe I'm misremembering, my brain's old and I forget sometimes. Maybe I'm misremembering, but weren't there rumors during the draft night? The Atlanta Hawks actually liked him at the number 1 overall pick.
Yeah, it was leading up to it.
Leading up to it. Okay.
Obviously, no one, if you just, in like the 24 to 48 hours leading up to the draft, I think if you just look at it from like a betting market perspective, there was a lot of like money and stuff that was coming in on Risa Shea. I think that was kind of the word on the street, at least if you just looked at some of the stuff that you saw online. Again, like take all that with a grain of salt.
Right.
But I think like at that point I was like, I think it's Risa Shea, but there was some buzz leading up to it that like, okay, they may have liked Clingan. I don't know. I can't confirm to you right now if he worked out for them.
Yeah.
Maybe
I can't remember.
Maybe he didn't. I can't remember that either, but I remember there were some buzz.
Right.
I just knew it wasn't Sarr because there was the whole thing about Sarr not working out with Atlanta.
Right.
And Washington being like the top spot if he was going to get picked, like that's the highest that he would go. And so I knew it wasn't him.
Right.
And so in my mind, it was either Risa Shea or Clingan. Not saying that I would have picked, but like who I thought would go number 1.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean.
Not 24 to 48 hours leading up to it. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And that goes back to like my big board. My big board, I had Castle number 1 because I thought he was the best player in the draft. It didn't mean I thought Atlanta was taking Stephon Castle. It's just not how the NBA works. GMs and scouting departments see different things, value different things. I mean, I honestly don't know how you look past the 2A ability of Stephon Castle and the maturity at 18, 19 years old, but hey, it's just me.
Where'd you have Clingan?
Where did I have
Just
Clingan?
out of curiosity.
That's a great question. Let me look at my big board that I have up here from last year. Oh, wow. I still have it blown up from when we did our stage show on 5 Reasons Sports. It's at like 175%. Give me 1 second. All right, let's see. Type in my Hoops profile here. That'll pull up all my big boards. And then there it is.
You had him 32? Oh my, I'm just kidding.
32nd? No. I had him 6th. He's 6th overall on my big board.
Okay.
It went Stephon Castle, Alex Sarr, Reed Shepard, Risa Shea, Nikola Topic, Donovan Clingan.
No Kalaware?
You're a funny guy. You're a funny guy.
Shameful.
No Kelaware. But you know who I had at 15th overall?
Who'd you have?
One Yves Missi.
Mm.
It's who I wanted the Miami Heat to draft. I was pounding the table for Yves Missi. And his latest outing, he had 16 points, 13 rebounds, like 2 blocks, 2 steals. Not bad.
No.
Also has upside because he's only like 18 years old, been playing basketball for 4 years.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You and me both like Missi.
I know. Me, you, even Eternal liked him. And then Eternal got like swayed by the powers of the dark side of Kello Ware. Because he liked Kello Ware initially, but then when he found out the Heat liked him, he was like, yeah, this is the guy. But it's all good. Stories yet to be written. You can't judge a draft class until like 2 to 3 years later anyway, 3 to 4.
Listen, man, that's what I told people when people were calling me a madman after Jared McCain had like 5 good games. Not that I don't like Jared McCain, but it's just like, can we let this stuff play out just a little bit, please?
Just a little bit. I mean, I like Jared McCain too. I had him 13th on my big board, so I was high on him, but you know, things happen. I mean, people can look good 1 minute, fall apart the next. You never know how, their overall career arc's going to go. But I mean, it's also not an indictment on any of the other players of McCain being good, because they were all kind of stack ranked very close to each other.
Right, that too. That too.
Yeah, it's not like there was one clear separator. Like, oh yes, this guy. Outside of, again, me thinking Stephon Castle was the best in the class. Outside of Stephon Castle, I just didn't see a guy that was like, oh, this guy's so much better than the next in that top 15. But anyway, back to Donovan Clingan. I did have another stat for you because they don't have another draft pick, in case the audience is wondering. You can tell the people what happened on draft day because your memory was better than mine. What took place why they only have one draft pick?
So they entered the draft with, I believe, 4 picks, 2 in the first round, 2 in the second. I don't remember who they traded the couple of second round picks for. I can look that up in a moment. But they did trade because they had 7 and 14. They did trade 14 to Washington along with Malcolm Brogdon. I think a couple other pieces for Denny Avdia. And they did that, I think, on draft day. Here, I'm pulling this up. Right here, let's see. It was Brogdon, 14th, the 14th pick, and then another first round pick, a future first round pick, 2029, and then 2 second round picks in 2028 and 2030. So really, they traded 4 draft picks, one of which just happened to be the 14th overall pick, plus Malcolm Brogdon, who is entering, I think, the last year of like a $20-ish million contract. He wasn't really all that productive. Like, they had to attach picks to get off him.
Right.
For Avdia, who I liked a lot. Like, I'm a big Avdia fan. I don't know. I think at the time I was in favor of that trade for Portland, and then I thought about it a little bit more, and I was just like, I don't think I would have given up that kind of draft capital. Right. For him. Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. This is per spot rank. Mm-hmm. Per spot rank. I don't know how you say it. But Brogdon is entering the last year of his contract, $22.5 million. Yeah. Avdia just did sign an extension, and so I believe I don't know if he's the first year is this year or if it was last year. It's this year. 4-year, $55 million contract extension. He's on the books for $15.6 million this year, and so you had to use those picks to get off that money match, and you're cutting costs a little bit if you're Portland, but I don't know if it's enough to justify this trade specifically. Not that Avdia has been bad, right? But I would have rather have had Bub Carrington.
Absolutely.
Plus draft capital. Yeah.
And that brings me to the point that we've been making this whole time for months and months and months now, that this draft class isn't nearly as poor and devoid of talent as it was made out to be by the bigger talking heads at the 4-letter networks. It's a solid draft class. It's just the top 5 wasn't as strong as most of the other draft classes, in most people's opinion. Like I said, Stephon Castle, to me, no matter what draft he was in, he was going high because he's a 2-way player, super poised, contributes to winning in every way, offensively, defensively, hustle plays. But yeah. So the other thing is,
by the way, sorry, I have the other 2 draft picks and what happened to them pulled up. But
yes, sir.
I'll let you finish what you're about to say. I just want to let you know.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Certainly, I want to know about that. I was going to say, just so people understand, because they may not understand, why they've been seeing an uptick in second round pick trades the last few years is because if you you used to be able to buy into the second round, you used to be able to trade cash for draft picks, and there were no consequences for those second round picks. Now, if you trade cash to buy into the second round, you get hard capped. And that limits your roster flexibility to be able to go out and acquire talent, make trades, and all that stuff. So, my personal belief is those second round picks are now more valuable. And that's why you're seeing people just, I'm going to stock up on them in a future draft so that I have them. But go ahead. What happened with those trades? I'm very interested.
So they were the 34th and the 40th picks in the draft. So they traded the 34th pick to the Knicks, and that was the Kolek pick. And then the 40th overall pick they traded to Oklahoma City originally, but it ended up being traded to the Phoenix Suns, who selected Oso. So that's what happened with the 34th and the 40th picks. I'm trying to see what they got for them specifically.
Let me ask you a question while you're looking that up. Tyler Kolek versus Scoot Henderson. Who's the better player?
Better player? I think it's probably Scoot, but
Is it?
Yes. I mean, the fact that I had to think about that is a separate issue, but I think I think Scoot's the better player.
He's the more talented player, like higher ceiling player, right? He's probably got a higher ceiling, like he's more talented. I'll be honest with you, I'm not even sure if he's the better player. Because what Tyler Kolek could do for that squad, to be able to run the offense, facilitate, not have to shoot the ball a ton, that would fit that team better. And he's a floor general and a leader, which they're missing on that team, is a floor general and a leader. I think he would fit that better. Now, clearly Scoot's more talented. I just think Kolek is right there in terms of what he would do for that team and be more productive than Scoot Henderson would be. I know it's a bold claim.
I think that I'm with you in the sense that I think Kolek is a better fit. I don't know if he's the better player yet.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. By the way, in the Knicks trade, they got back the 2027 or a 2027 and a 2030 second round pick. And then they got back pick 52 in exchange for the 40th overall pick, but they also traded that to the Golden State Warriors, and that was the Quentin Post pick.
So that's where your toast is buttered. I got it.
So that's what happened with those selections. I know a lot of trades, but they were able to get 2 future second round picks in 2027 and 2030 from the Timberwolves and the Knicks, respectively. Like, those are the teams who previously owned those picks. Those are the originators, I believe. And then they traded pick 52 when they traded the 40th overall pick to Oklahoma City, which then they just traded to Golden State. I know that's a lot of mental gymnastics that some of the viewers may have to hop through, but
no, it's necessary information. It's good information. I'm glad you provided it. One thing I wanted to say too about that Portland build, because they are sorely missing a leader, and they're trying to rebuild. Wouldn't you rather have that capital, especially with how strong the 2025 draft is going to be, and then how strong the 2026 draft is going to be? Like, you'd rather be in those drafts. Like, I feel like getting a 2027 draft pick is like way less value than it normally would be, because the 2 drafts preceding it are super strong.
I agree. I don't know. I mean, the Thunder have they're overflowing with picks. If let's say the Oklahoma City Thunder was a house, if you walked into that house, the Oklahoma City Thunder would be hoarding picks. Like you would open the door and picks would just start falling out of the house. they're overflowing with picks. They can't have this many picks, but they actually do. So I'm with you. I don't know exactly what their second round pick situation looks like, however. I know they have a gargantuan amount of first round picks.
Right.
I'm sure they have a bunch of second round picks too.
Right.
And so I'm with you in the sense that, like, if you could find a way to get the 2026 or 2025 picks, awesome. But I also, for me at least, you're more suited to answer this than me. I don't know how good the 2027 class is yet. Because obviously, like, players return and players reclassify and all that stuff out of high
Right.
school, and then, like, players return and improve, and like maybe they're expected to be a 2026 first round pick. They stay next year of college, get better, and then all of a sudden they're in 2027. Like, there's so much variables from now and then that can possibly change the perspective of that class.
Right.
And so I'm not sure if it's supposed to be a good class or not, but I am with you, especially with what we know about this 2025 draft. And then what we somewhat know about the 2026 draft. I would rather have picks in both of those two drafts, but I think it's just too far out for me to conclusively tell.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that might be Portland's line of thinking too. Like, maybe they're able to swing a trade or something to get into the 2025 or 2026 draft. I don't know what their draft capital situation looks like for those two seasons. So they may already have a bunch of picks in those drafts that they may not want. Like, they may not want to add to. I have no idea.
No, that's a great point. That's a great point. I mean, it's very difficult for a individual like myself or like yourself to project the 2027 class. Like, the amount of high school watching you would have to do would be astronomical. And so
Right.
we kind of got to lean on the scouting community and what their overall sentiment is. And their overall sentiment is the 2025 and the 2026 draft are like two of the deepest in years, like most talented in years. So I really couldn't speak to the 2027. But my point is, you're passing up something you already know the community and the scouts at large believe are two super highly talented deep draft classes for a 2027 class. So I think they should have kept the picks, in my opinion, and built that way. Now here's a different. I'm gonna zig in where I should have zagged here. Back to Oklahoma City Thunder. If Cooper Flagg is the number one pick, which we all believe he's going to be in the 2025 draft, what is stopping them from packaging like 3 first-round picks and just going for it and adding him to Shea and all the talent they already have?
I think the one thing that would stop them from doing it is the other team being like, we think this isn't enough.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah, like it's going to come up more than once now between now and the start of the draft. I mean, it sometimes depends on where these picks fall to, because Oklahoma has the potential to have 3 first-round picks this year.
Right.
Which is just petrifying.
That's why I brought it up. That's specifically why I said 3 first-round picks and brought it up, because I believe they have 3.
Yeah, I just wonder, like, depending on who that team is, they may just be like, this is just a franchise-altering player. You can give us as many first-round picks as you want, but we can't guarantee that they're going to be as good as this guy.
I wouldn't personally take the picks. I would pick Cooper Flagg. That's just watching his young career 4 or 5 games in. Do I think he's generational? No. Do I think he's going to be franchise altering? Yes.
Wait, you wouldn't take the picks, or
I don't think I would.
Okay. All right. I see. I thought you said you would for a second. I was like, okay.
No, I don't think I would, but it's very tempting. I'm not saying it's an easy decision, but I'm just saying, just on a snap reaction, like, would I take the picks? I don't know. But that might be a poll question to put out on the interwebs through Twitter and Blue Sky, and See what the results come back. Would you trade 3 first-round picks for Cooper Flagg? I'd be very interested to see the results. I'm going to put a poll up for the audience to see what the audience thinks, and then we'll do an at-large poll on Twitter and Blue Sky.
Well, I think the question is where are those first-round picks? Like,
is there a point that
where
you would
are
do
they
it?
like, if you're just looking at it from a 2025 perspective, like,
Yeah.
where are those first-round picks? Like, am I getting it at 5? I'm just throwing numbers out there. 5, 16, and 20, or if it's like 11. Like, where are those picks in relation to the rest of the draft? Or rest of the first round. Like, if they're
I'll put a question
middle of the first round picks, but if I'm getting a top 5 pick,
I'll put a question back at you.
A little bit more inclined.
But I'll put a question back at you. What would it have to be for you to accept it? So a top 5 pick, we know that was one of your requirements. It would have to be a top 5 pick.
Well, I'm saying, like, I'd be more inclined to do it. That doesn't mean I would necessarily do it.
But that's what I'm saying. What is the line? So we know one top 5 pick. What's the other one? If the other one's in the top 15, and then maybe a pick near like the 28 or something, 27. Maybe. If you're Joe Cronin.
I think I'm with you in the sense that I would take Cooper.
Yeah, you just take the guy. You just take him. You just take the guy.
It's the same. We're going to have the same conversation as people, or at least some people did, assuming Oklahoma City actually gets 3 first-round picks, which, again,
right,
don't even want to think about that. We're going to be having the same conversation like what we had with Victor. Like, what's the line that you're going to draw for Victor Wembanyama versus, like,
there was no chance San Antonio was moving off of it, though. There was no amount of picks.
I'm with you. I don't think there was either.
Yeah, there were no amount of picks.
He's a better prospect than Wemby was, or than Cooper.
He is generational. Yes, he is generational. That freakish size, length, movement, ball handling, shooting touch. That's generational. Now, let me ask you this other question. Speaking of San Antonio, what if the lottery ping pong balls fall and the first round, the very first pick in the draft goes back to San Antonio?
Jesus Christ.
Cooper Flagg, Wembanyama, Stephon Castle. Yikes.
I mean, if I'm being completely honest, the way they're playing right now, they may not be in the lottery.
Right.
That's neither here nor there.
Right.
Or at least they might be, like, in the 10 to 14 range, where it's just the odds are so stacked against you. But
yeah,
I mean, the Hawks were supposed to be like the 10th pick or whatever it was, and they leaped up to number 1.
Right.
So anything can happen. That's like a very small possibility, nonetheless.
But let me.
That'd be terrifying. Like, that would be that's terrifying.
It's terrifying if, like, you put Dylan Harper or Ace Bailey on that team. I think both of those guys is terrifying. Trey Johnson.
6'4" Ace Bailey.
Yeah, that's right. 6'4". Keeps shrinking. He keeps shrinking, Ace Bailey. That's right.
Every single time I watch him, he just shrinks. No, him next to Wemby's terrifying. I don't want to think about Ace Bailey against. That's terrifying.
Yeah, and the spacing because Ace. The one thing, no matter what you think of Ace Bailey, is he is a knockdown, flat out shooter. Like, he's a bucket. Like, he's a freaking bucket.
I mean, like, this goes back to the conversation we were having the other day. Like, even if they were at, like, 6.
Oh, my goodness, yeah.
What if, like, Trey Johnson?
Yeah.
Is just there at 6.
Oh, my goodness.
Like, what if that's just impossible? Like, again, I'm not saying Trey Johnson's going to stay at 6 or whatever.
But so
like,
this,
he's just there.
So this goes back to the Oklahoma City thing. Because they have so many draft picks, if they could get multiple of those guys to put what they already have, yeah, that's wild. That would be absolutely wild.
What if they're just at, like in the middle of the first round and get, I don't know, I'm just going to throw names out there. Like, what if they just get, like, Asa Newell?
Oh, I actually like that. Him and Wemby down low is a problem. That's actually a problem. You put because you still have Jeremy Sohan there too. So like for defensive purposes, if you have Sohan, but he's never healthy, he gets hurt all the freaking time. You have Asa Newell, Wembanyama, Stephon Castle. Oh my gosh, dude, their future's bright. Their future's so bright.
What if they're inside the top 10 and somehow find a way to get Knepp?
Oh, I would love that too.
I would
love that too, dude. I'd absolutely love that.
100% them at 1. Most terrifying outcome.
Yeah, that is scary.
But they can still get some of these guys.
They absolutely could
in their respective spot.
Dude, this draft night's going to be fun this year. I actually low-key can't wait. Like, I kind of want to skip the rest of the season and just go to the draft.
I mean, it'd be a real shame. A true shame if there was one team in South Florida that didn't have a single pick in this.
Oh, it's going to hurt.
It's going to hurt. An absolute shame.
They go into the play-in just to get bounced in the first round. Let me ask you this, because I didn't think this through. This team in South Florida that will not be named, do they have to miss the playoffs completely to not have that pick?
Yes.
So if they make the play-in, do they lose the pick or keep the pick?
No, I think if they lose in the play-in, that's what I mean. Like if they lose in the
so hypothetically, they could still make the play-in, which they're destined to be at best a play-in team, it seems, and still lose their pick.
I mean, man, listen, the way the Eastern Conference is shaking up, I'm not going to say they're like Eastern. I don't know if I have the standings pulled up. I was looking at this earlier.
Yeah.
It's so unbelievably bad how bad the East is compared to the West. Like, the Heat are 7-8. They're the 6th seed. They're a half game behind Milwaukee, who they just lost to. Milwaukee's won 5 straight.
Right.
7 of their last 8, I believe. Then New York, Orlando's 12-7, yet Paulo's only played 5 games. Boston's 15-3.
They're winning the East, right? Like, it's Boston's winning the East.
It looks like either Boston or Cleveland.
Do you buy Cleveland? Are you buying or selling Cleveland?
Oh, I think it's too like I'm buying Cleveland in the sense that I think they can win like 55 games.
But I mean against Boston. I apologize. Like to get past Boston, buying or selling?
Oh no.
So selling. Okay.
I think they're better than Boston, or I think they're better suited to play Boston this year than they were last year. Because I mean, obviously Donovan was out most of that series against Boston.
Right.
They just really didn't stand much. Like, the games were somewhat competitive, or at least a few of them were, but they really didn't stand much of a chance. I think Cleveland's better coached this year, and I think they're better suited to play Boston in a 7-game series. I would still take Boston in 6 or 7 if I were to put money on it. But then, like, you just look at the rest of the East, like Indiana 7. I don't know how the hell Brooklyn is just 8-10. Like, they just completely missed the assignment when it comes to the capture the flag sweepstakes.
Right.
They're 8-10. 6 and they have the second. By the way, they're tied for the second most wins against teams above 500. If NBA.com is correct.
Brooklyn. That's crazy.
Chicago's 8-11, Detroit's 8-11, Atlanta 7. Like, you just go on down the line, and it's just bad. And then you look at the West. Each of the top 10 seeds in the West are either 500 or better, or 2 games above 500. Because San Antonio's the 10 seed right now. They're 10-8. Again, I'm not super sure. I'm not sure how sustainable that is for them specifically, but Minnesota's 8-9, Sacramento's 8-10. They just signed Jay Crowder yesterday.
The ghost of Jay Crowder.
Yeah, like, I'm not sure what that's going to do for him. Also, but we've talked about second-round picks here. I know we're going off like on a rant here.
That's fine.
Do you remember Milwaukee trading 5 second-round picks for Jay and then just not playing him at all?
I do.
Like how funny that was. Like,
I
wait,
do.
they traded how many second-round picks? Like,
Yeah.
don't know why that was the price, the asking price at the time.
Right.
And then that same day, teams were trading a gajillion second-round picks for different players.
But this is after the rule change, though, right?
This
is right after the hard cap rule for buying second round picks.
Well, the new CBA, the first year of it was last year. It was the year before that.
Yeah, then I don't know why they would. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I think maybe league executives were anticipating or knew something.
Oh, maybe they had the inside track. Like, this is going to change. Like, we got to get ahead of this. That's a good point. That's a good point.
Maybe I have no. Again, I could be completely wrong with that, but it's just the fact that they traded 5 second-round picks for Jake Crowder and they just never played him, which is
hilarious.
Objectively hilarious. We were talking about Portland. They're 7-11. We went on a complete side tangent for like 20 minutes, but
that's completely fine. We covered what we were supposed to cover, the Donovan Clingan mountain of a man, and then we were just riffing about stuff around the NBA, which is fine. That's completely fine. We did get some votes on our poll, which are at odds with our take. It said, would you trade 3 first-round picks for Cooper Flagg? And the answer is objectively from the audience, no.
Okay. Yeah, see, I don't think I would. I mean, again, it depends on. I'd be more inclined to do it depending on where those picks were.
Keloware?
No.
Well, let me say this, because I don't want to speak for the audience, but here's what I believe is happening. Here's my perception of what the audience believes. The audience is seeing the first couple of games here, the first like 4 or 5 games of Cooper Flagg, and they're seeing the 2 losses, and they're like, this guy's not as good as we think he is. That's some of what I think's happening. But I think by the end of the college basketball season, people are going to be like, oh, this guy is as good as we thought he was. So I think that perception will change. We should do the poll again closer to the draft and see if that perception changes, because I think it will.
I mean, he's still averaging 17, 8, and 4 with 2 blocks and 2 steals per game.
As a freshman, correct.
As a freshman, like,
correct.
The efficiency isn't there. I know there's concerns about the ball handling and traffic. That's fair.
Yes, fair.
But he's still
very
clearly the number 1 pick in my mind.
Yeah. I mean, Dylan Harper's really good. Ace Bailey's really good. Trey Johnson's really good. I like them all. I don't like them all better than Cooper Flagg at this point. I would have to see sustained poor play in order for me to be like, you know what? Maybe we need to start thinking about some other guys taking that number 1 pick. There's some European guys too who are very, very talented that we'll talk about eventually. But
I have yet to watch a single second.
I haven't
any of the European guys.
Well, I usually don't watch any of the European guys until like the playoffs start, like over there. I'll watch a few games. Like I'll go back and watch a couple of regular season games. But I value what happens in the playoffs, because if you would have looked at Zachary Richichet in the beginning of that European season and only went off that analysis, you'd have been like, there's no way he's even remotely close to going number 1. But in the playoffs, he was dynamite. He was being more aggressive. He showed his ball handling, his 3-point shooting came around. Like, these guys are going to get better. That's my point. These guys are going to get better.
Mm-hmm.
But to wrap up the show, I just want everybody to please like and subscribe. I want to give a big shout out to Thunder Knight as our latest subscriber. If by chance I don't shout you out sometimes, there's a privacy setting on YouTube. And if you have this privacy setting enabled, it will not alert me that you subscribed. So if I don't shout you out, it's not because I don't appreciate you. It's just the limitation of your settings. But I do appreciate you. Thanks for subscribing. You can become a channel member for only $2.99. That helps the show continue to go on, so I can try to continue to have my co-host Matt Hanifan around, as well as getting paid for my work at some point. I would like to. I've been doing this for a year. I've made $100 for a year worth of work. So anyway, I do appreciate your support is my point. And I hope you like the content. Share it with your friends so they can become informed and educated on these topics and matters. Join in on the fun and have conversations with us. You can find me on Twitter, on Blue Sky, on all social media accounts as Digital Adele. You can find me on 5 Reasons Sports Network as a contributor for Miami Heat content. And subscribe to the Beyond the Backboard podcast, anywhere podcasts are found, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio. For Matt, where can these people find you, follow you, and get more of your work?
At NPH_824_. That's where you can find me at on Twitter. You can find me hothoops.com, mountainwestconnection.com, vendettasportsmedia.com, to watchplayback.tv/5RSN, where you could find Adele and I. In addition to plenty of other people from the 5 Reasons Sports Network watching Heat games, talking about the Miami Heat, as happy, as sad, as mad, as frustrated, as ecstatic they make us on a game-by-game, minute-by-minute, possession-by-possession basis. You can see us all over there. If you want to join in and watch some Miami Heat basketball with us. It's not the best right now, but that doesn't mean you can't come have fun with us.
Absolutely. And what I'm going to do for those, because we're going to try to do the podcast on a weekly basis. We may go back up to 2 days a week if we can. But what I'm going to do right now is drop some gifted memberships in the chat so that you can get the content early. So that means any prospect that I break down, you'll get it as soon as it's out. You don't have to wait. The content's usually out on like a Monday or Tuesday, or and then on a Friday. So I usually do 2 videos a week. But if you're a channel member, you get it immediately. So I'm going to drop some gifted memberships real quick. And I wanted to let you know I appreciate you guys. So if you get a membership, hopefully you appreciate that. And I'll see you guys next time. So thanks for dropping by and really appreciate the support. To our co-host, Matt, thank you. And have a great rest of your day, man. It was a pleasure as always.
You too, man. Thank you.
You're welcome. Take care.